Hey, what's up? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tonic Accord podcast. Today is Monday, and we're just going to be catching up on something that's actually kind of been in the headlines for, I think, the last 4 or 5 days. And it's honestly ridiculous, and I don't think it's been covered enough. And it's just kind of the hypocrisy involving Trump's, touting of this Regeneron cocktail drug antibody treatment that Trump says, helped him get out of Walter Reed and become immune to coronavirus. And I'm not really surprised that this story hasn't been covered much, just with all the chaos in the news, but I kind of just want to talk about the craziness of this drug specifically and the Republican hypocrisy with it. So, yeah, we're going to dive into that today. So, I'm sure I'm going to get some feedback. I decided to try out the kind of handlebar mustache look. It might last a week. It might last the next 2 hours. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyways, I'm going to keep this episode today fairly short, mainly because I think it's worth mentioning some of the character flaws of our president and this administration. But also, I can already tell you it's a controversial topic, so I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for it, but I think it's worth talking about. So, the gist of this story is that about 4 days ago, it was made public and reported by sources like The Guardian, The New York Times, and a few others that, in quotes from The Guardian now, one of the drugs taken by Donald Trump that he has touted as a potential cure for coronavirus was developed using human cells originally obtained from an elective abortion, end quotes. And this story just on the surface is nuts, because Trump and pretty much all Republicans have constantly attacked the legality and morality of abortion. And the story sounds awful, because the president has wanted to limit reproductive rights for women, and he's always hinted about wanting to overturn Roe v. Wade. But then he is given access at the same time to some of the best experimental treatments in the United States, and one of them potentially uses cells from abortions. And yeah, this is just the constant hypocrisy that I keep seeing from the right, and honestly, it's ridiculous. It really does kind of make me wonder how pro-life some of these conservatives actually are. And I do want to start out just with the caveat that the media, the administration, and politicians haven't been upfront. So a lot of Americans just don't know about this. So I'm not going to just say all conservatives are hypocritical or all Democrats are hypocritical. It's also just a lack of information, and some of these stories just aren't covered enough. So now, just for mainly context sake, I'm going to play a little clip of the press conference when Trump touted this Regeneron drug, because I think it just adds some really good context to where I want to lead with this catching up episode. So let's just take a look real quick. It's unique.
But I spent 4 days there, and I went in, I wasn't feeling so hot, and within a very short period of time, they gave me Regeneron. It's called Regeneron, and other things too, but I think this was the key. But they gave me Regeneron, and it was like unbelievable. I felt good immediately. I felt as good 3 days ago as I do now. So I just want to say we have Regeneron, we have a very similar drug from Eli Lilly, and they're coming out, and we're trying to get them on an emergency basis. We've authorized it. I've authorized it. And if you're in the hospital and you're feeling really bad, I think we're going to work it so that you get them and you're going to get them free. And especially if you're a senior, we're going to get you in there quick. We have hundreds of thousands of doses that are just about ready. I have emergency use authorization all set, and we got to get it signed now. And you're going to get better. You're going to get better really fast. This is things that nobody even thought of a few months ago.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this video, and I'm not going to get into all the specifics because there's a lot of the hyperbole in this video and Trump touting this miracle cure is kind of just the last 30 years of Trump kind of being a fish oil or snake oil salesman, excuse me. But aside from the abortion thing for a moment, I think it's a bit bold for Trump to just claim that this drug is the cure-all. And, that he's going to get it to every senior for free in the United States. Like, first off, from reports that I'm reading out of the New York Times and Forbes, I think Regeneron has only used this drug on about 275 people. And there's just a very limited amount of this cocktail available right now. And I can only imagine that to produce, enough of this drug for millions of Americans, it would take years. And also it would be expensive. And likely, I don't really see Medicare or Medicaid paying for it. And this drug is extremely expensive. I think I've seen it's close to $500,000 for a dosage. So Trump got good care, but I don't see that happening with other people. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll use the emergency powers to do so. But like I talked about in an earlier episode, it's not a good move to do that. And yeah, I do want to go a little bit further too, because the Guardian did check their first report and, adapted a little bit with the new information that's came out. And so apparently these HEK cells have been immortalized, meaning that they divide freely in the lab. So that is something interesting to mean that this is not living cell tissue. So yes, it comes from embryonic kidney cells from a fetus that has been aborted, but it's not like they're just killing babies to do this either. And that is an important difference. And, I've seen some people on MSNBC just say Trump's killing babies for this Regeneron, and that's not particularly true. But there is the hypocrisy that they're not willing to allow women to have reproductive rights, but they are kind of willing to look the other way if this drug is able to, complete the narrative that they have. And I think that's the part that's unfortunate. And the other thing, which is not related to abortion or this, but it's also interesting because it worries me about this Regeneron as well. And while we're on Regeneron, I think I'll just mention it, is that Fox Business today said that, in quotes, the Securities and Exchange Commission filings show that 2 executives at Regeneron netted about $1 million through sales of the company's stock after Trump praised their drug. And, they claim that this was pre-established plans to stop insider trading, which may be true. But this is definitely a trend with Trump, is that he touts something that he believes in and usually has connections with. And this is something that's been going on for decades. And so I just don't really particularly trust Trump telling the American people that this is a solve all. And Dr. Fauci has even gone over that as well, saying that, let's see here, I have it. He's saying that it's premature for Trump to say that this is a cure for COVID-19. And at the end of the day, who do we believe? A medical expert or a president who is doing poorly in the polls and desperately needs a shift in the narrative on how he handled this virus? And so I think we're seeing hypocrisy, misconception, and just plain lying to the American people. And so with that, I think that's all we need to talk about today. But I just wanted to mention that, the election's coming up, and I think people think that I've done a lot of stories recently criticizing Republicans. And, I just think that it's important, myself as a Republican, to make the point that there's a lot of hypocrisy. And I want to see this party do well because there's values that I still stand for. But I think right now, there's a lot of sycophantic people on the right who have allowed Trump's kind of just issues become the mainstream in the party. So take care. We'll be back tomorrow with a great guest, a great conversation, and we'll talk to you then. Bye.